Yeah, today we will talk about, well, I'll talk about Arbitrum Orbit. So I'll walk through that and I will also explain what teams are building. So I'm David. I'm a program manager at the Arbitrum Foundation and I'm focused at Arbitrum Orbit adoption, which basically it means helping out Orbit teams through here. I'm okay? Okay, awesome. So it basically means helping Orbit teams with growth. So as an intro to what Arbitrum Orbit is, all of you know already about Arbitrum 1 and Nova. So these two public blockchains, they have saved tons of gas fees to users. So there's tons of users that have used them. There's tons of applications, and therefore they also save like tons of gas fees in the Ethereum ecosystem. And so the Arbitrum, so until now, like those application developers, they had the opportunity to build on top of those two public chains. But now, with Arbitrum Orbit, they also have the opportunity to get that piece of code and build their own blockchain. So going through a bit of the history of Arbitrum Orbit, Arbitrum Orbit first started as just being a layer 3. So you could take the code and permissionlessly launch on top of Arbitrum 1 and Arbitrum Nova. You didn't have to go to the DAO. You didn't have to pay any fee whatsoever to build your own blockchain using the Arbitrum code base. But if you wanted to launch what we call an Orbit Layer 2, which is like a blockchain that settles on Ethereum, then you actually had to talk to the DAO. You had to have a lot of discussions with them. You had to go through like some voting approval, which normally takes a month. Then like token holders would have to approve your application, and you had to actually like disclose what you wanted to build before actually building it, right? So there were a lot of hassles in this process, and there was a general desire for efficiency. So there were a lot of community talks. There were a lot of discussions with around the delegates, and then like there was like we come up with what's today the Arbitrum expansion program. So what that allows is that you can permissionlessly deploy any layer 2 or layer 3, even including, so basically like you can deploy that permissionlessly in exchange for something. So in terms of like, so basically, like I'll explain a bit more later, actually, about the layer 2s and layer 3s, but essentially, in exchange of a fee portion, you are allowed to take that code, to use it, to make it production ready, to change it, and the only thing you're not allowed to is actually commercialize it further than that. So right now, today, if you want to use like one of the most mature layer 2 stacks, with a community that's very tight and very active, that's possible, and it's permissionless. So this is what we call community source licensing, which is between open source and closed source. So each of these types of licensing has its own disadvantages, and that's how we came up with the Arbitrum expansion program. So there's two types of orbit chains. We have layer 3 orbits. Those are blockchains that settle on top of layer 2s, which could be Arbitrum 1, Arbitrum Nova, but they could also be layer 2s that are not Arbitrum owned. So let's say Optimism or Base. There's no fee, actually, if you want to build your own Orbit layer 3. But, well, there's no fee if you build on top of 1 or Nova. There's actually like a 10% net revenue fee if you are building on top of like the other Ethereum layer 2s. And actually, today it's not possible to be building orbits on top of other like alternatives EVM blockchains. It's also not possible to build on non-EVM layer 1s, but that's a matter of community. If the Arbitrum community decides that they want to allow that technically, it's possible. Then the second type is the layer 2 orbit chains. So as I said, we moved from having to ask for permission to the DAO to just being able to do it on your own, just by like in exchange of like that revenue share. And then these types of orbits, they can be what we call either a roll-up or it can be an antitrust chain. So the difference is that like the roll-up, it settles and it takes the security from Ethereum. Instead, when you are using an antitrust chain like Arbitrum Nova, like the data is being stored off-chain. So now a bit more technical. What is Orbit? So for Arbitrum 1 is a series of smart contracts that are deployed on the Ethereum layer 1. And so it's exactly the same. So for Arbitrum 1, it has like the smart contracts, there's two types. So there's like roll-up smart contracts, there's also bridge smart contracts that actually like allow that communication between the Ethereum layer 1 and Arbitrum 1 and secure that communication. And so with Orbit is exactly the same. So it's a series of smart contracts that you deploy on a parent chain, and that secure that communication between the two blockchains, the parent chain and the child chain, being the child chain, the Orbit chain. There's also like some minimal changes on the Orbit node, but that's pretty minimal. So some people ask, hey, how hard was it to build what is today Arbitrum Orbit? And the answer is it wasn't super hard, but it wasn't easy either. So a lot of people ask, well, why would you want to build your own Arbitrum chain? And there's a lot of reasons why you would want to do that, but I will mention 4 of them. So the first one is that you can customize the state transition, the software. And Arbitrum 1 today, it optimizes for Ethereum equivalence. And so the amount of changes that you can do to the code are limited to what Ethereum is actually also upgrading with. But with Arbitrum Orbit, it's not. So like there's some examples here. You can, for instance, natively integrate account abstraction at a chain level. And essentially, you can implement any EIP upgrade that you want. Another example is that you can, for instance, set your blockchain to be private or public as well. So it's basically anything. I mean, the team, what the team recommends, though, at this point in time is that to touch the as little as possible the code, because, I mean, you know, like it's quite complex, and so you don't want to be messing up around when you are in production, and yeah, you just need to be careful with what you do. Security is obviously essential. So at a different level as well, you can customize like the logic of the protocol. So you can decide, oh, do I want my where do I want to store my data? And for that, there's like what we call the data availability layers, and basically we have Celestia, we have EigenDA, we have Near, and more. You can also develop your own governance systems. So like, do you want to upgrade the code with when Arbitrum 1 is also upgrading the operating systems or not? That's up to you. And then there's also some other changes like the one I mentioned here, such as like the cross-chain communication and the sequencing models that we are researching with Espresso. So the third reason why you would want to build your own chain is due to like gas price reliability. So today with Arbitrum 1, users have to fight for that block space, right? And there's like third-party applications that are on the chain, and an increased demand might generate an increased gas demand will also generate increased price for the users in the transaction. So one way you have your own blockchain, and then you have more predictability, because you can see what applications are in your blockchain, and you can predict what's the demand for block space. And then the fourth point is that you can actually use any ERC20 token for gas. And so we are the only, I mean, that's pretty straightforward, right? Like we are the only layer 2 stack that actually allows that today. And there's the example of Degen chain, which is quite one because it's a layer 3. It's using the Degen token as a gas token, and it's actually settling on base. So the team decided that that's what they wanted to do. And we support all of it. So it's either settling on Arbitrum, one of the 2 public chains, or it's like a non-Arbitrum chain that we support anyways. So there's also a lot of talk in the community about, oh, why do I want to build a layer 3 if I can just build a layer 1 utilizing the Arbitrum tech stack? And so there's like 2 reasons why you would want to build a layer 3 as opposed to the layer 2. And the first reason is finality speed. So to understand how optimistic rollups work, essentially like users submit transactions, those transactions get sent to the RPC. The RPC bundles those transactions in blocks, and then these blocks are posted on the parent chain. So in a case of a layer 2, you are posting transactions, and you are posting transactions on Ethereum. That's, as you know, it's quite expensive, right? Every time you post a transaction on the parent chain, there's like a fixed cost to do that. So what these teams would be doing is they would be trying to actually submit blocks in times that are like more distance, so that users have to pay less gas fees. And then what that means that if instead of using like a layer 1, you're using a layer 2 as a parent chain, and you are like basically like getting like that batch on the layer 3 and submitting it on the layer 2, that's around 99% cheaper. And so you can actually decide if you want to bundle transactions into blocks way faster, therefore achieving faster finality. And then the second topic is the cost of onboarding users. So at the beginning, when you're building your own orbit, you want to have that integration from centralized exchanges. Most likely, you will also not have like fiat on-ramp, off-ramp. And so you have to be thinking that if you go for a layer 2, users will have to onboard through the parent chain, the chain that's beneath you, and therefore again that incurs like quite some cost. And so obviously like an example would be, for instance, Coinbase, right? So if you have a layer 3, you can just onboard your users through Arbitrum 1. Sending the transaction from Coinbase to Arbitrum 1 to your own layer 3 chain, which is not the case if you're building on your own layer 2. So this is also something that people laugh about, because they say, oh, there's layer 3s, so when there's going to be layer 4s and layer 5 and layer 100 and layer whatever, right? So technically, there's likely going to be layer 4s and layer 5s, but you don't really gain much from building that. So there's no technical reason and like cost benefit from like layer 4s or layer 5s, because the 99% cost reduction happens when you move from layer 2 to layer 3. So that there's no additional benefit. What would likely happen, though, is that for ecosystem reasons, there's like a layer 3 that's highly successful. And then there's other developers that want to build on top of that. They want to build their own layer 4 for like whatever business reasons. And we foresee that that's going to happen. So we're actually already seeing that. Like we have a layer 3 that's a gaming chain that's called Zai. And there's already a layer 4 that's doing some AI mining stuff on the layer 4, and it's settling transactions on the Zai network. So do I build an application on top of a public chain like Arbitrum 1, or do I build an app chain? So what I want to say about this is it really depends on where you are in your project lifecycle. So if you are a startup, you don't have a user base, and in terms of funding, you are constrained. I would recommend that you first go with Arbitrum 1, Arbitrum Nova, just because these chains, there's two reasons for that. So one is like these chains already have like best-in-class infrastructures providers integrated, and most of the times you will get those services for free. And then the second reason is that you are also tapping into like one of the largest existing layer 2 chains in terms of users, in terms of volume. So what we normally recommend teams that are just starting right now is to do it in a phase approach, where like you first deploying one of the two existing chains. Once you get like that initial traction mass, then you can migrate into your own layer 3 or layer 2. So I hope you're bought with the idea of orbits, customized blockchains, and layer 3s. And now I just want to describe a bit about what's being built in the ecosystem. So one of the things that we are seeing, we aren't seeing a lot of general purpose blockchains because they would be competing with Arbitrum 1. And yeah, it's difficult competition over there. The ones we are seeing at the moment that are general purpose are the ones that they are using the bridge, where like the Ethereum is being used for restaking or staking purposes, and we're seeing some of them being built. But besides that, most of what we are seeing is like niche blockchains. And we have already like 40 that have been announced. We have over 70 orbits being in development at the moment, and these orbits teams, they have to wait to build their own orbits. So they either go with a provider that's going to help maintain the software, that's going to help them develop it further and upgrade it, and that's what's called the roll-up as a service provider. Or if they want to have if they have the capabilities to build to build their own blockchain, then they can do it themselves. They will have to maintain the code. They will have to upgrade it if they want to do that. So whether you choose to build using a roll-up as a service, through a roll-up as a service, or you choose to build your own blockchain using the Arbitrum tech stack, this is just like a snippet of like the best-in-class infra teams that are already supporting Orbit. So there's not going to be a problem for having like not the right infra provider supporting you. And then I want to talk a bit about the different teams that are building Orbits today. All of these three teams that you see here, they are building gaming chains. And we are seeing a strong adoption on that vertical. And there's two reasons why gaming studios really like to build Orbit chains. So the first one is because they're building all their games around a token economy, and then they are using their own gas token as gas for gas purposes. So they are adding that utility on top of their own token. And then the second reason is that the Arbitrum blockchains, they are the fastest within Web3 when it comes to block time. And so that's also a feature that a lot of people really like. And then it's just going through those examples. So like the first one is Zai. They are layer 3 gaming infrastructure chain. Actually, they were a success since day one. They got already listed and integrated with Binance, which was a big thing in that case because it was the first layer 3 as well being launched. Then in the middle, we have the famous Bored Apes collection. So they decided to build their own chain, and it's a funny story because it was in 2022 where they were launching some NFT collection that was called Other Side, that the users that went into minting it, they actually experienced extremely high gas cost because everyone was like fighting for that block space to get access to one of the NFTs, right? And so that's when they thought about, oh, maybe we should build our own blockchain. And then it's been this year that there's been a contest across all the top layer 2s, and the team in the end decided to build using the Arbitrum technology. And then the third example is Treasure. So it's also a famous one within the Arbitrum ecosystem. So this team actually started in Ethereum. Ethereum was too expensive for them, so they moved into Arbitrum. They grew with Arbitrum. They have a large community now, and they also have like a large amount of gaming teams that are supporting them. And now they've decided to make their step into the orbit. So that's like the phase approach that I talked before. Also, what's interesting for them is that their strategy is that they will want to create their treasure layer 2, and then every game they are going to be supporting, it's going to be a layer 3 on top of their layer 2. Then we also have other examples at the DeFi side of things. There's Kinto, which is mostly focused on compliance. So any user, any LP fund whatsoever that enters the chain needs to KYC, AML, KYB first before they can actually use the blockchain. And so that has its own niche market with more for players that actually want to make sure that they are compliant. And then there's also two other examples like Frame on the social side and Proof of Play, which is also an on-chain gaming app chain. And so these are some of the Orbit use cases, but there's like way more. For instance, one of the last ones is like the Azuki collection also like announced that they wanted to launch their own Orbit chain. And they are going to be mostly focused on the IP, entertainment, and also gaming side of things. So I hope that you are now bought. A lot of top teams are using the Arbitrum tech stack. And so how do you start building on Orbit? So I would I would recommend first to go through the documentation that we have online. It's pretty well written. There's also the SDK for building Orbit chains. If you feel you are not sure around like how to work around those, I also recommend to reach out to a RAS provider. We can make that connection very easy and start building. And so this is my presentation. I want to end the presentation with something that's Arbitrum is freedom, and the orbits are the realization of that because they basically allow developers to do whatever they want. They just take the code, do whatever you want with the code. At a software level, you can use like different types of like programming languages to code, but also you can also customize that blockchain. And so it's really that. And then from a user standpoint, we also don't impose users like what they have to do, the type of governance they have to follow. So essentially, Arbitrum is that. Arbitrum is freedom. Thank you very much.
If anybody has any questions, just let me know. All right. I saw the gentleman in the pink shirt first.
Hello. I would like you can explain how you make the bridges from Ethereum to the Orbit clones work and adapt, and also how the bridges from Orbit from Arbitrum to Orbit work. Is that something that is manual? You need to do a hard fork? Is automatic? How it works?
Actually, I'm not that sure about how it works because I'm not a technical. I'm not a technical person. But there's two types of breaches. The first one is so we have our cross-chain communication connection. I would have to redirect you to the slides to do that, or later, like we can look at it together. But that's one type, and if you want to deploy that, so you're building your own Orbit layer 3, actually we're going to help you out. There's like a front-end UI where we aggregate already all bridges, and so we will help on that. So that's existent. And then you also ask about the layer 1 to layer 3 connection. This is something that's currently being in development. So it's what we call the fast withdrawals. And this is still not even on testnet, so it's in its internal development. But the idea of it is that you are going to allow fast withdrawals between the Ethereum layer 1 and the Orbit layer 3. And that, by the way, you avoid the 7-day withdrawing period that you have to go through Arbitrum 1.
I think I saw another hand.
Hi. Yeah, my question is also a bit technical, if you know how to ask.
I'll try.
Yes, I want to know better how does the settlement from layer 3 to layer 2 works. Is it? I'm familiar how EIP 4844 works, so that this is how Arbitrum settles into Ethereum.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you're using the same protocol or a different protocol to settle from L3 to L2.
So, I think so. I mean, it depends, right? So, you have, so when you are like using Arbitrum Orbit, you have two options. So, I mean, you can either use what we call rollup or you can use what we call AnyTrust. If you're using the rollup option, you are settling your data is on chain, and therefore it gets the security warranties from the chain beneath you. If you are actually like doing like the AnyTrust model, like your data is being stored off chain. So it's way more centralized. There's also some security assumptions around that. So those are the two differences. When it comes to the proto-dunk sharding upgrade, I do think that this is something that was, so this was something that was upgraded on the Arbitrum 1 code at the time that happened. And so that was upgraded into the Orbit code. The version that was at the time, I don't know, I think it was ARBOS 20 or something like that. So it should be like, it should have the latest upgrade, yeah.
Okay. What about the degen chain? How does it, do you know how it settles? Which mechanism it uses?
Yeah, so it's using AnyTrust. So it's settling like a piece of information on base, but the actual data of the blockchain itself, it's being stored off the blockchain, off chain.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I see another one back here.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. I had a question around, for the Kinto case study, you were saying they chose Arbitrum 1 instead of the OP stack because of customizability. Was it mainly because of the gas token,
Yeah.
or was there like more there?
I wasn't involved in the discussions. In the Kinto example, the team, that was the breaking factor, because Arbitrum is the only tech stack that today allows for custom gas tokens, and that was for them like a big deal. So that was definitely the breaking factor. Post that, I've talked to the Kinto team. They are extremely happy to be working with us, and so they are very happy with the move. But if you ask me, for technical reasons why teams would choose the Arbitrum Orbit stack versus the superchain, there's plenty of reasons actually. So, well, is that like also where you want to
sure.
go? So there's plenty of reasons. So one is the block time. So Orbit's block time is between 100 milliseconds. It can go down to 100 milliseconds and 250 milliseconds. OP ones, it's 2 seconds and can go down to 1 second. The Arbitrum tech stack, besides the token, it's also the only one that has had like this off-chain data availability layer like running for years, like, well, a year and something with Arbitrum Nova. Then it's also the only layer 2 that has fraud proofs. So at the moment those are like permission, but within like the next weeks we are gonna go into like stage 2 permissionless fraud proofs, which is a massive change, and it's a big thing. It's a big thing. So optimism is also not there yet, and so that's why a lot of people then say like, oh. Actually, like if you don't have fraud proofs, you are not a blockchain, you're not a layer 2. You're whatever you are, I don't know where you are. But a lot of people complain about that. And yeah, I mean, those are like more technical. But I think there's also ecosystem reasons why you would want to choose Arbitrum. If I put on the other side, what the OP stack sells is that once you join the super chain, you will have interoperability between all the chains that form the super chain. The problem with that is that if you go to that level, like the security, so the problem you have is that the chain with the lowest security is the security that all the chains in the super chain have. And so this is not an approach that we want to take, by the way. We have something that's called chain clusters, but that's another thing. That's how we think we solve this problem.
Cool. Thank you.
All right, do we have any more questions? No? Then another big thank you to David from Arbitrum Foundation.
Thank you, guys.